There are people in the world who completely ignore reality while believing without a doubt that they are on the right path. Observing such individuals can be quite intriguing in a way. They are convinced they are correct, but the surrounding circumstances and reality are entirely different. A prime example of such a person is that guy we're discussing. He clings to the sinking ship of Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2, NASB2, and firmly believes it to be the savior of the platform fighter genre. YouTubers like him have built their channels around this one game, ignoring its obvious flaws and broken mechanics. He solemnly declares, the only issue with this game is the 12 characters removed from the previous game. Because clearly, that's what truly ruined the game, right? The bugs and the virtually non-existent player base don't matter at all. But he doesn't stop there. Oh no, his mission is to continually downplay every problem with NASB2. Glitches? Not a big deal. Bugs? Just a minor inconvenience. The online mode being dead? That's because players don't love this masterpiece, according to him. He deflects all criticism of the developers and instead blames the players, as if he's desperately clinging to a lifeboat with a hole in it, unwilling to acknowledge that there's a problem. And the funniest part? He only remembers NASB2 when he's out of content ideas or needs views. Section 1, The Myth of Character Removal. Let's start with his favorite topic, the removal of 12 characters. According to him, this was the fatal blow that drove players away from NASB2. He completely ignores that the game itself is as broken as a discount item at a dollar store. No, it's the missing characters that are the real problem. Listening to him, you'd think this was the greatest disaster in gaming history, a game that had the potential to be a platform fighter's pinnacle, destroyed by this single issue. But let's be clear. Character removal is indeed painful, but it's far from the game's biggest problem. What truly drives players away? It's the countless bugs and glitches that make the game more frustrating than enjoyable. Players falling off stages for no reason, CPUs standing idle throughout the match, shields popping like balloons because they're held forever. These are the real reasons no one wants to play NASB2. But does he mention this? Of course not. In his world, players abandoning the game is because the game itself has issues, not because the players lack love. And let's not forget his narrative about the developers. According to him, these issues are just minor oversights that can be easily fixed with a patch or two. Just wait, and the game will be perfect again. It's as if he lives in an alternate reality where bugs and glitches are insignificant problems. However, we're faced with the reality of dealing with a game that's closer to an unfinished beta test than a finished product. What's most amusing is that despite the removal of characters, NASB2's roster is still quite substantial. Sure, some characters were lost, but new ones were added too. The problem isn't the roster, it's the fact that the game is falling apart. But he continues to obsess over character removal, making it his die-hard belief to defend. Ignoring the obvious issues. Section 2, The True Problems with the Game. Next, let's address the core issues. NASB2 itself is a disaster. It's hard to believe anyone actually play-tested the game before its release. Even worse, the developers seem to either have no intention of fixing it or simply lack the ability to do so. Yet that guy believes everything is just fine, except for the character removal, of course. First, let's talk about the bugs and glitches. Have you ever been in the middle of an intense match, only to suddenly fall off the stage for no reason? Welcome to NASB2, where gravity is optional and the ground is merely a suggestion. It's as if the developers decided that floors were overrated and abandoned coding midway. And let's not forget about the CPUs. They are some of the most incompetent AI opponents I've ever seen. They often stand idle, occasionally attacking randomly, but mostly just waiting for their shields to break because they're stuck in a perpetual shield state. Then, there's the story mode. This should be a redeeming feature of the game, a fun way to experience the characters and their world. Instead, it's another broken mess. The story mode is plagued with bugs, making it feel like you're fighting the game itself rather than its characters. Characters get stuck, stages glitch out, and progression halts regularly. Yet that guy will probably describe this as part of the game's charm or simply ignore it, because it doesn't fit his narrative. And let's not forget the online mode. Well, what's left of it? Finding a match in NASB2 is like searching for a needle in a haystack. Except the needle is a decent player, and the haystack is an empty wasteland of lobbies. The player base has essentially abandoned the game, leaving behind only a few die-hard fans or unfortunate souls who haven't realized that the game is essentially dead. But according to that guy, the online mode is perfectly fine. It's just that more players need to log in. Because the online being dead is the community's fault, not the game's. What's truly funny is how he downplays all these issues. He mentions the bugs, but only briefly, treating them as minor inconveniences. In his world, these problems are part of the game and don't detract from its appeal. Such cognitive dissonance, if it weren't so frustrating, would almost be admirable. Section 3. The struggles of his channel. Now, let's talk about his channel. It's evident that his channel is heavily reliant on NASB2, but it's also clear that he barely plays the game. He has built his brand around this one title, squeezing every bit of value from it while ignoring its flaws. When content ideas run dry, he conveniently remembers NASB2 to produce new videos, like new DLC ideas, or characters that should be added next. Because adding more characters will save this game, in his opinion. In reality, his channel is built on shifting sands. He desperately clings to new content, using even the most absurd ideas to garner views. For instance, his incessant talk about second DLC fighters is a classic example. It's as if he believes that adding characters will magically solve the game's fundamental problems. It's like repainting a sinking ship and hoping it will be seaworthy again. And the saddest part? He abandons NASB2 as soon as something new comes along. He's just like the developers at GameMill, who created this broken game and then moved on as soon as the hype died down. When NASB2 no longer brings in the views he needs, he'll jump to the next trending game, squeeze every bit of content out of it, and then, when ideas run out, return to NASB2. It's a desperate cycle that's frankly quite pitiful. But what's even more disheartening is how he treats his audience. He has no interest in providing genuine content. What he's after is keeping his channel alive at any cost. This means lying to his audience. He pretends to love NASB2, to enjoy playing it, while it's clear he's just going through the motions. He doesn't show passion or real enjoyment, just a man desperate to sell a product. Because acknowledging NASB2 as a broken disaster would mean admitting his entire channel is based on a failed game. So he continues to lie and hopes his viewers won't notice, or worse, that they'll believe him. Section 4. Lies and Deception. Now, let's get to the heart of the matter. Lies. It's one thing to enjoy a game despite its flaws, but it's a completely different issue to deceive your audience to boost views. And that's exactly what that guy is doing. He has built his persona as the go-to guy for NASB2 content, but it's all based on lies. He doesn't love the game, and he barely plays it. He's merely using it as a tool to sustain his channel while misleading his audience. He'll tell you how great NASB2 is, how wonderful the game is, and how the community should give it another chance. But watch his gameplay videos, and it's clear he's just going through the motions. There's no passion or genuine enjoyment, just a man trying to sell a product. Because if he admitted that NASB2 is a broken disaster, he'd have to admit his entire channel is built on a faulty foundation. So he opts for deceit, hoping his audience will either remain oblivious or believe his false narrative. But the deception doesn't stop there. He exaggerates non-existent content and talks about DLCs or updates as if they will magically solve all the issues. It's all a smokescreen to distract from the fact that the game is fundamentally broken. And worst of all, he's convincing people to cling to a game that's essentially worthless. He's trapping his audience in a cycle of disappointment and frustration, all to keep his channel afloat. It's a deeply unethical act, betraying the trust of viewers and undermining the integrity of content creators. Conclusion: the problem with that guy. In the end, that guy is not just a delusional fanboy. He represents a larger issue within the gaming community, content creators who prioritize views over honesty, who would rather deceive their audience than admit their brand is built on a failed game. NASB2 is broken, and no amount of character additions or DLCs will change that. The true problem with the game is being overlooked by creators who are more interested in avoiding criticism and continuing their charade. So, the next time you come across one of his videos, remember this. What you're getting is not the truth. What you're watching is a cleverly crafted narrative designed to keep you watching, while NASB2 remains fundamentally flawed.